Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go over how much it really costs to host a website. When it comes to hosting websites, you'll find that there's loads of hosting providers out there that will give you different plans that not only covers website hosting but also covers things like any additional benefits like customer service, any additional pros like free domain, free CDN, SSL. All of these things are really important when it comes to hosting your WordPress website or any kind of website. It's also important to note that there's different that when it comes to WordPress website hosting, there's different types of hosting, and each of those types of hosting have very different price points. So for example, the 4 types of hosting are shared hosting, VPS hosting, cloud hosting, and dedicated hosting. And within those, there's lots of hosting providers that provide those types of hosting. But if you're going for a shared hosting plan, that'll be much more cheaper and more cost effective than going for a dedicated hosting plan. So when it comes to figuring out what budget you should keep for your hosting provider, you need to think about firstly what kind of hosting you actually need. So for example, the first type of hosting mentioned was shared hosting. The way shared hosting works is that there will be multiple websites that are using one single server. So usually you'll have no idea what the other websites you're sharing the resources of a server are, but each customer will be allocated a limit or a total amount that they will be able to use from their server resources. And this will be defined by your actual hosting packages. So in terms of price point, shared hosting is easily the cheapest and most economical option for your needs, because the cost of running that server is going to be spread out between multiple websites that are also using your server. So shared hosting is really good for people who have just started out building a website, and the website still is quite small. It doesn't have a lot of traffic coming in just yet. So if you have a smaller budget, maybe think about shared hosting as an option. Other than the huge cost advantage of choosing shared hosting, the other advantages of shared hosting is that a lot of hosting providers will provide support within their hosting plans. So if you are someone who is not as has a strong kind of technical background, or you're not wanting to deal with a lot of the technical side that comes with managing your server, there is a lot of expert customer service on hand to kind of help you with your website hosting, take care of all the maintenance for you as well, so you can just focus on what you do best, which is just managing your blog, managing your portfolio website, whatever it is. And a lot of larger companies also offer multiple services, so as your site grows, you can upgrade without any hassle. Some of the disadvantages of shared WordPress hosting, though, is that compared to something like dedicated servers, you will notice a slightly lower server response time on shared web hosting servers. That's because the server is not only catering for your site, but multiple other websites as well. And because you only have a certain amount of resources allocated to your website, you might not always be you'll find your site might be slightly slower when handling larger amounts of traffic as well. It also means then if your site starts to gain more traffic, you'll start to exceed the allocated amount of resources that are on your website. So either you would need to upgrade your hosting package, which will then kind of increase the cost as well, or you'll need to move on to another kind of hosting platform, hosting type, such as cloud hosting or VPS hosting. But again, when it comes to beginning, when your site is first starting up, shared hosting is a really good way to go, especially if you have a small sort of hosting budget for your website, but also because it'll be able to handle the small amounts of traffic that you'll have on your website. So as mentioned before, shared hosting is really good in the beginning when you are first starting out and you have low traffic on your website. However, as your traffic increases, as your site gets bigger, you'll realize you'll slowly be outgrowing the amount of resources that have been allocated towards your site. This can cause a lot of issues. For example, downtime. If you realize your site is experiencing something called internal server errors, 500 errors, that means your site has run into downtime, and it means that the amount of resources that you have are no longer enough to keep up with the site. You'll also find if your site starts to slow down, if it's not running as many processes completely, it means that you no longer have enough resources for your site. This can cause a lot of issues. It can cause issues like people, not coming back to your site. You can lose out on sales because it means for bad sort of customer service. So you want to make sure that you recognize the signs of when you need to move on, when you need to change your hosting. And one option is to obviously speak to your hosting provider and increase the amount of resources that are allocated on your server onto your website. The other option is to switch to something called cloud hosting. So cloud hosting is very different to traditional hosting. Cloud hosting uses a virtual server to host websites in comparison to traditional hosting that usually has one or multiple sites on a physical server. So it enables you to kind of use the resources of multiple servers, thus resulting in faster performance. It works through something called virtualization, which is a technology that splits a physical server into multiple virtual machines, and they're called cloud servers. And then these cloud servers connect to create a single network for hosting a website. This makes it really different. This infrastructure makes it really different to traditional web hosting. And the main benefits of using cloud hosting solutions include high availability. When one server fails, the rest will cover for it and keep the website running. This makes cloud hosting more reliable and more reliable than traditional web hosting. So if a site has to rely on its server being up all the time, the way it does in traditional hosting, then you essentially lose out on any sales or potential customer click-throughs because the server might be down, and therefore your site will be down. Something that cloud hosting is really good for that we won't get in shared hosting is something called traffic load balancing. So when the website experiences shifts in traffic, so for example, if you have a steady stream of traffic normally, however one of your blogs goes viral, you might notice a spike in traffic. There are more and more people coming onto your site, and it's more than what your server can handle if you're on shared hosting. But with the cloud hosting infrastructure, they will spread the performance across the cloud servers. This will kind of maintain the performance for your website as it sees more visitors. So you're not limited to like bandwidth, storage, or computing power available. You can use additional server resources in the virtual environment to support the site's main growth. And another great advantage is the greater security. So cloud hosting is generally less prone to disasters and physical malfunctions since it uses multiple servers in a virtual environment. Moreover, the load balancing feature helps prevent DDoS attacks. When it comes to choosing whether or not you need cloud hosting, the usual types of websites that use cloud hosting are e-commerce stores, news publications, search engines, or anything that garners high traffic projects. It's perfect for all the websites that need lots of processing power, bandwidth, and disk space to accommodate for lots of visitors coming into your site and the high amount of files and data that will be used by your site. As I mentioned before, it's really good for sites that have dips and surges in traffic. It's easy to anticipate traffic surges, which usually happens, for example, if you're an e-commerce website and you have a big sale on, or when a blog post goes viral or anything like that. The load balancing will ensure that the traffic doesn't overwhelm the resources of any virtual server. In this case, they may kind of opt for a private cloud as opposed to a public cloud, but it usually comes with a dedicated cloud infrastructure hosted on a private network to prevent sort of unauthorized access from it. So when it comes to pricing cloud hosting platforms, they tend to be a little bit more expensive than shared hosting platforms. Which is why we recommend cloud hosting as something to come after. So you can start off with shared hosting, and then afterwards, as you notice your site grow and you realize you're outgrowing your resources available, then it might be time to move on to cloud hosting, and hopefully by that time the budget for your hosting will also increase, as well as the needs for your site increase as well. Traditional shared hosting isn't as powerful as cloud hosting, so it's unsuitable for someone if it's just a personal website or a small online store. So we recommend sort of sticking with shared hosting in the beginning, and then increasing the budget for cloud hosting once your site gets a bit more traction and a bit more traffic as well. Another pro of cloud hosting is that it is still beginner friendly, so website owners don't need any technical knowledge to be able to maintain your hosting, especially because there's a lot of hosting providers out there that provide 24/7 customer support within their hosting packaging plans as well. So we've talked about shared hosting and we've talked about cloud hosting. The next type of hosting is VPS hosting. So VPS hosting is similar to shared and cloud hosting, as multiple users share a single server. VPS stands for virtual private server, but it's different to shared hosting because like cloud hosting, it uses virtualization. So the same technology powering cloud hosting to create separate server partitions is the same technology that's being used by VPS hosting. So that way users are getting their own dedicated resource pool to support their website rather than sharing one server with the resources with other websites. So VPS is also considered a next step between after shared hosting. Once you've outgrown your shared hosting plan, it's a lot more comparable to cloud hosting in terms of performance. Other than what's slightly different about VPS and cloud is that users will get full root access to your own server, and that allows you to configure the hosting environment to your exact needs. Usually this isn't available with managed or shared hosting, so you definitely need a bit more of a technical background to be using VPS hosting. The pros of VPS hosting is that they're, again, like cloud hosting, very reliable. Having a dedicated server space means that the issues of one website won't affect the other websites. Full root access, so this is another one. So this feature is useful for people who do have a technological background and who want to install custom operating systems or software for their projects. Most web hosting providers will also include a dedicated IP address. So compared to shared IP, it's a much safer opinion, as it will protect your email and prevent your website from being associated with any kind of spam sites. In terms of price point, again, you're looking at pricing similar to cloud hosting plans, but there's lots of hosting providers out there that offer different layers, different levels of package of hosting packages. So, for example, Hostinger is a web hosting provider. They provide different kinds of hosting, VPS hosting. They also do cloud hosting and normal shared hosting for WordPress. But even just looking at the pricing for their VPS hosting, they can start as little as £3.49 per month, all the way down to £60 per month. And the main difference between all of these are the performance power, so how much RAM you're getting, how much disk space you're getting, and how much bandwidth you're getting. All of them do come with the complete control, so you have complete root access for all of them, and you do have weekly backups as well. Comparing that to something like a shared hosting plan, their most expensive plan can be very expensive, but again, it's not something for a beginner site with low traffic. If you do have high amounts of traffic, if you do have dips and surges in traffic, then ideally your budget for hosting providers should be a lot more, and you'll be able to kind of make use of that as well. Lastly, then, the other type of hosting is dedicated hosting, and dedicated hosting tends to be one of the more expensive hosting plans out there. Even their beginning hosting plans will be more expensive than any of the cloud hosting plans or the VPS plans that we'll see. But dedicated hosting is a term used to describe web hosting packages that provide your client or your website with its own dedicated server, with its own dedicated resources to one single website, to one single client. Dedicated hosting plans are ideal for websites or even WordPress websites with a very high number of visitors. there's lots of hosting service providers that offer dedicated hosting plans along with shared hosting plans and VPS hosting plans. The way it works is, so for example, in a shared hosting plan, a client is sharing a computer with many clients. In the case of a VPS hosting plan, the clients are sharing a machine, but not the resources with other clients on the same computer. But with dedicated hosting plans, a client leases a whole server with all of its resources. Web hosting companies offer different packages of dedicated hosting plans, and the prices of these plans are based on the client's choice of hardware, resource allocation, things like that. Dedicated hosting plans are ideal for larger organizations or websites with much higher traffic. The clients get full control over the server, which allows them to configure it to meet their own needs. The dedicated plans also come in managed and unmanaged forms, where the hosting center can manage the server for the client in case of any problems. As mentioned before, dedicated managed servers are generally more expensive, and the prices are influenced by the amount of resources that you'll configure, so things like bandwidth, storage space, the amount of RAM. Additional expenses for dedicated servers also include software packages that you need to run, software like licensing for Windows, cPanel, other paid software, and things like that. So when it comes to hosting, the first thing that you need to do is pick which kind of plan that you want, or which kind of hosting type that you want. If you are starting off as a small e-commerce website, small blog website, then shared hosting would be for you, and the pricing is very similar across board between different hosting providers. The next step will then, once you've outgrown your resources, will be to do something like
Someone's at the front.
cloud hosting or VPS as the next step. So you want to make sure that you've got that covered as well. And if you're a enterprise business or a business that has lots of traffic coming in and out every month, and you require a lot more resources, then dedicated hosting would be for you. But then just to keep in mind that dedicated hosting plans do start a lot more expensive than some other types of hosting plans would. So now when it comes to actual pricing, the best way to look at all the pricing is to go on websites for the most popular web hosting providers out there and then see what they offer. When it comes to web hosting plans, not only are most of the recommended hosting providers are offering to host your website, they will also have lots of other offers as well, and lots of other services that they'll add to your plan. Some of them you'll find you don't actually need, but a lot of them you'll find you would have needed anyway. So sometimes it's cheaper to buy hosting plans with everything, with all of the services added on within the plan, than to just buy the hosting itself and then buy everything else as an add-on. So the first hosting provider we're going to look at is Bluehost. So Bluehost has been around for a really long time. They started in 1996, and they have become the largest brand name when it comes to hosting, and more specifically WordPress hosting. They are an official WordPress recommended hosting provider. With Bluehost, you never have to worry about your website being slow, even when there's lots of traffic. And they have 24/7 customer support as well. That's always on hand when you need it, either by phone or by live chat or by email. Bluehost tend to have a lot more affordable prices, at least in the beginning. And they offer quite a lot as well within the hosting. So if you go onto the website, you can see they offer shared hosting, dedicated hosting, and VPS hosting. So to go into their shared hosting, you can see the share hosting plan. They've got up to 4 different plan levels, and they differ mainly by the amount of storage and resources that you get, and also the number of websites that you can allocate to. So for example, their most basic plan starts off, right now they're on offer at £2.40 a month. They usually have these introductory offers when you first buy a plan from them, so it's really good that way as well. So you're starting off really cheap and basic at £2.40 a month, but you can also go pro and start off at £11.33 a month as well. As mentioned before, they differ mainly in the amount of resources that you're selecting. So even at their most basic plan, you get 10 GB storage, custom themes, 24/7 customer support, and you only get one website, meaning with one plan you can only assign one website. This can be a pro or con depending on you yourself. If you know you just have the one website, then this basic plan will be enough for you. But if you know you have one or two websites or multiple websites, then the basic plan might not be enough and you might need to move on the plan higher. So like the Plus, Choice Plus and Pro all come with different with an unlimited amount of web hosting plans, of websites that you can use on their website, on their hosting plans. In terms of the amount of performance, so 10 GB SSD storage is the lowest you can go, and that's with their basic plan. That's still a really generous amount of storage that you get, even for the price that they're offering. And what's really good about Bluehost is that with every one of their plans, even the most basic one, you get the 24/7 customer support. So Bluehost customer support is rated really highly. You can talk to their support team representatives using live chat, phone support, and things like that. And this is really helpful when you need quick technical support from their staff, and they're just one click away, and that's included with all of their pricing as well. What's also really good, even for their basic sites, is that they include free CDN, free SSL, and free domain for 1 year. The free SSL will help add that extra layer of security, and the free CDN will add an extra boost of performance as well. These are things that usually with web hosting providers are add-ons, so you'll need to pay extra. They're not necessary to have, but they are a very nice to have feature. The free domain as well, so you get, with the basic plan, you get a free domain for 1 year. So if you wanted to, you can buy a site while you're buying the hosting plan from Bluehost directly, and it'll be free for 1 year, at least for the basic plan, and then it's free usually with the other plans as well. Again, you're saving more money if you were planning to buy a domain anyway. You're saving more money to go with the hosting provider that is offering that for free, whether that's for 1 year or for indefinitely. You are paying for that. You will have to pay for that either way, whether that's free here or whether that's with the hosting plan as well. So just some other things to consider whenever you are choosing a hosting plan based on pricing. What other features are you going to get for free with it, and which of those features were you going to use anyway. In terms of the other plans, so again, they start at $442 a month and $1133 a month. Again, the main differences between all of them is the amount of resources that you'll get, but also the additional add-ons that you get as well. So with the Choice Plus, you get everything that the Basic and the Plus offers, but you also get free domain privacy and free automated backup for 1 year. So the domain privacy will basically protect your information from the Whois database. So if someone were to look up the domain information for the domain that you have, they'll just see Bluehost general contact information. They won't see any of your information. This is really good in the long run because you are going to be basically protected from any spam or even identity theft in the worst case scenario. Free domain privacy is, again, not necessary, but it is a nice to have. And if this falls within your budget, then you are essentially getting a good deal because you are getting something that's really nice to have, but included with so many other things within your plan. The other thing that you can get with the Choice Plus and also with the Pro is the free automated backup for 1 year. So with the Choice Plus, you get it for 1 year, and the Pro, you get it for indefinitely. So with the free automated backup for 1 year, for the first year of hosting, you will get a backup of your website that's automatic anyway. Again, automated backups are nice to have, not necessary. However, I would say it's very strongly recommended. Backing up your website every night, especially daily backups, it just means then if for some reason your site is running into issues and you need to roll back to a previous version of your site that was actually working, you have a very up-to-date version of your site, one from say last night as opposed to one from a week ago, because obviously the earlier that the backup you have, the more data you're going to be losing if you ever need to roll back to that. So it's strongly recommended that you get a free automated backup, that you do choose a hosting provider that do offer the automated backup daily as well. There is ways to get around this. So for example, if you're a WordPress website, if the hosting plan you decide you want doesn't offer the daily backups, or at least they don't offer the backups maybe daily. You can get free plugins like Updraft. Updraft itself is free, but they have a premium version as well. But essentially you can make your own backup. So you install the plugin onto your site, you make your backup, and it'll save either on a Google Drive, it can save directly to your computer. The difference between having it done by your server automatically every night and between you doing it is that it's a manual process. So you will need to remember every day to make a backup of your site daily and then store that somewhere. Whereas with some hosting plans, if they offer it, they will do it automatically every day and they will store it on their servers. Depending on what plugin you choose, so for example with Updraft, the free version, you can manually take a backup yourself, but you can set it up to take automatic backups and automatically save it to like a Google Drive or anything like that. However, that is part of their paid version, so you end up paying for that backup. Whereas if it's possible to find a hosting provider that offer it within their plan, then you have it all in one area instead of having it separate as well. So you have that one. So these are really kind of nice to have features. So again, these are features that aren't necessary but are strongly recommended and are really great value for money. You do get other things with their Choice Plus and their Pro, things like plugin collections, performance insights, and staging sites. And depending on your skill level and depending on how involved you want to be with the technical side of your websites, this might be just an extra cost or something that you don't need, or it might be something exactly that you're looking for. It's important to note that with Bluehost's pricing, they do offer a really good amount of performance, and the add-ons that they're offering are really good as well. So they are a hosting provider that are worth looking into. Bluehost is often ranked number 1 by web hosting providers, and because of all the hosting options that they offer with lots of features that they offer with all their plans. All their hosting include 24/7 customer support from knowledgeable staff, and their starter plans are very affordable to kind of fit lots of budget requirements. So you can see here they've got different price points for different budget requirements, and you can also change like the billing cycles as well if you want to be billed for 2 years or 1 year as well. If you click on compare all plans, you can see a more detailed list of what they're actually offering. And you can kind of go with this list and see exactly what they're offering and whether or not that fits into what you need as well. One thing to note when it comes to their shared hosting pricing plans, so they obviously offer these as an offer. So for example, take the basic plan. Their introductory offer is £2.40 a month, and that's just for the 12 months. So for a whole year, you'll get that pricing. However, after that year, it does auto renew at the regular rate, and the regular rate you can see here is £8.92. Same with their Pro. So with their introductory offer, you're paying £11.33 a month for a whole year. However, after that year, then you need to pay $23.54 for the Pro pricing. So their renewal price is higher than the average. The introductory pricing are great, and it's great especially for shared hosting when you're just getting started off. You have a whole year to kind of get your site up and running, and making sure everything is set up as well. So in terms of the pricing, you do need to be careful of the introductory pricing, as this is what you're paying for just the year first, or for the first 2 years, depending on which pricing you go for, and what their normal pricing is. But as well as shared hosting, they also offer pricing on dedicated hosting. So dedicated hosting we talked about is when you have your own server for your website, meaning you have all the resources of the dedicated server just to yourself. The downside is that you have to manage the server on your own. But when it comes to their pricing plans, they have 3 levels of dedicated hosting plans, and they differ by obviously the amount of performance needs that it has. So the amount of RAM size, the CPU threads, and the dedicated IPs as well, the number of dedicated IPs you get as well. If you look at their price plans, so their basic plans, standard plans, comes at $64.95. This is quite a jump from their shared hosting plans. If you remember, they start at £2. So that's something to remember to keep an eye out whenever you are choosing your hosting, is that the types of hosting is what really will have the difference. So shared hosting will have similar pricing across the board, across different hosting providers, but different actual hosting types. So like shared hosting, dedicated hosting will have the main differences in price. So when it comes to dedicated hosting, with Bluehost, you're looking at pricing between $64.95 a month for the first year, for the 36-month term, to about £97.43 for a 36-month term as well. Unlike their shared hosting plans, they only offer billing cycles for a 36-month cycle. So, and again, they also have the introductory offers. So while the introductory offer for the standard plan is £64.95, after £36 a month, they will auto renew at £102. Similarly with the premium plan, the auto renew amount is £170 as well. So you're potentially spending up to £170 a month on your dedicated hosting, but within that you get the CPU features here, the generous amount of RAM, generous amount of storage, a generous amount of bandwidth as well. So there is a lot that you're getting, and they all come with the free domain as well. So again, the free domain might be a good plus if you haven't got your domain yet. However, if you do, then this isn't something anything extra. You can use it for something else as well. You can see on their website exactly what they're offering as well. But you do get essentially these 3 plans as part of your dedicated hosting. Another hosting provider that provide dedicated web hosting is Ionis. So Ionis websites score really well in terms of performance and speed and stress. So it's another really good option. And in terms of your pricing, they have a lot more options when it comes to choosing your hosting plan. So for example, if you go under their hosting, the first thing you can customize about their plan is whether or not you want SSD memory or HDD memory. You'll notice that the SSD memory is a lot more expensive, and this is because SSD storage is a lot more faster than physical HDD storage. So if your budget is slightly smaller, you can choose an HDD storage plan, and you can go as low as £47 a month. This is slightly cheaper than Bluehost, but it can also go as high as £140 a month as well if you choose their SSD storage. And again, they offer very similar features to what Bluehost offers. You're really just paying for the storage as well. They also have introductory offers. So for example, their most basic SSD plan is $45 per month for 6 months, and then after that it's $65 a month. So there is a bit of a jump there, but it's not as much as Bluehost are offering with their hosting plans as well. So something to just think about there. Another thing to keep note of is that all of their plans have that. All of their plans have that introductory offer of 3 months at a certain price, and then afterwards it goes up. The jump isn't too much, usually by $20, but just something to think about as well. They also charge a $50 setup fee as well. The only plan that doesn't come with a separate pricing for 3 months is their most basic HDD plan, which is £47 a month. You do get a little less resources than what you would do on the most basic hosting for Bluehost, but you do also get the free domain and the free site scan as well, which is really good as well. When it comes to dedicated hosting, again, it's the most expensive type of hosting, but you also need to think about the other payments that come with that as well. So if you are not someone that can manage a dedicated hosting by yourself, it's something then either you can pay extra to your hosting provider. Usually comes more expensive for them to maintain your dedicated server, or you hire an external staff that are well equipped to manage your own server as well. So there's extra sort of pricing that way when it comes to dedicated hosting, and things you might want to think about whenever you are choosing dedicated hosting as your main hosting as well. But at least with dedicated hosting, then you'll have the hosting server for your website, and you'll have all the resources of the dedicated server to yourself. If you can find someone to manage the server on your own, that might be an extra cost. But if you are someone that can manage the server on your own yourself, and you have the time and you'd like to, then it should be fine. you won't have the extra cost that way either. So after dedicated hosting, the middle ground between dedicated hosting and shared hosting would be the cloud hosting and VPS hosting. So with cloud hosting, as mentioned before, cloud hosting is when you're using multiple cloud servers to host your website, and this allows your website to automatically switch to a different server in case of like a hardware failure or for high traffic needs. So it's really good for scalability and load balancing as well. So when it comes to cloud hosting, one of the more affordable hosting plans for cloud hosting is Hostinger. So you can see their plans start from $8.99 and they can go up to £50. That's more of an enterprise. However, they do offer quite a lot within each of their hosting plans. So even taking their cloud startup plan, for example, so you get $8.99 a month, but you do get 3 months free with that. Again, to watch for those introductory offers, it's $8.99 a month as your introductory offer, but then you get $12.99 when you renew. Similar to the cloud enterprise, it's $49.99 a month for your first introductory offer, but then $84.99 a month when you renew. So just something to be aware of. The main thing that they differ on is the number of SSD storage. However, you get a really generous amount of SSD storage with their cloud hosting plans. All of their cloud hosting plans include SSD storage and not HDD, so you know you're getting fast, high-performing cloud hosting within your plans as well. So you don't need to worry about your website ever experiencing downtime or any lagness because they don't have enough storage allocated to your site. So some of the bonuses that they include in their plan that are nice to have but is strongly recommended, one of them being the daily backups. So as I said before, it's really important that you have some way of making a backup of your site daily, whether that's included with your hosting plan, and they do it for you and store it all offline for you, or you do it yourself via a third-party plugin if it's a WordPress site, and then you just make sure to do it manually yourself every day. But daily backups are definitely, while not required, a strong must when it comes to maintaining your website. In the long run, it'll save you so much time if you are only backing up to if you're only rolling back to a later version of your site as opposed to a really early version of your site. And then another thing that they offer then is the free domain. So you've seen a lot of hosting plans do offer a free domain, some only for a year, whereas Hostinger have it within their plans as well. And you get that free within their hosting plan. Again, a nice to have but not necessary. However, a domain is something that you will need for your site anyway, so if you haven't got that purchased already, you can do that through Hostinger and get it free. Some other nice features to have but may not be necessary for you especially is free migration. So if your site is already hosted elsewhere, but you don't want to deal with the hassle of migrating your site from one server to another, or you don't have the technical experience to do that yourself, Hostinger will take care of it for you within their plan. So they will migrate your site, meaning your site migration will be fully hassle-free on your end. You just need to provide them with all the information and they'll be able to migrate your site for you. So again, if it's something that you can do on your own, then this may not be as much of an advantage as it would be for someone who wouldn't be able to do it, or if you don't have a site just yet and you don't need free migration at all, then again it won't be as useful as someone who will actually use this, but it is a nice to have feature afterwards. Hostinger themselves are becoming a really well-known name in the hosting industry, specifically for WordPress hosting. They do offer not only affordable cloud hosting, but they also offer affordable shared hosting as well, and shared WordPress hosting. What's really good about Hostinger is that they offer really good customer support as well. They have a 24/7 live chat support and a really strong platform to host your website. So you can see even with the shared hosting prices, it's a lot more affordable than what we've seen, for example, in Bluehost. So their cheaper plans start with at $149 a month, and that's their introductory. Even the renewal plan is not much of a jump. It's about they renew at £3 a month as well when you renew, and that's their single WordPress plan. And their most expensive plan goes for $8.99 a month. That renews at $15.99 a month as well once your introductory offer is done. So they have one of the lowest price hosting in the market for shared hosting. But even with their shared hosting and their price point, they have really good performance optimized sites as well for the price point that they're offering. The main difference between all of their pricing is the amount of storage, the amount of bandwidth, and also the amount of websites that you get within each of their hosting plans. So their single plan, shared hosting plan, includes one website, one email account, 50 GB SSD storage, and 100 GB bandwidth. These are good for websites that have approximately 10,000 visits a month. This is really good, so then the beginnings of like a beginning website or a starting website. This plan, however, doesn't include the free domain, and this can be seen as an extra pricing. So depending on how much you're paying for a domain, this can be seen as a negative, because you are not only paying the $149, but you're also paying whatever it costs for that domain on top of that. But this is only with the single WordPress. The WordPress starter does come with the free domain as well. So just a really important thing to note. Their premium plan allows you to add up to 100 websites with 100 GB SSD storage, and it's good for websites that have about 25,000 monthly visitors. It includes a free domain name for the first year, free SSL, email, and so many other features as well. You'll see between the single WordPress and the WordPress starter, they actually only offer weekly backups. So it's still better than offering no backups at all. However, as mentioned before, daily backups are strongly recommended. It's good that they keep the weekly backups, and if you buy either of these plans, you'll have that anyway with saved within their servers. However, if possible, you maybe should consider installing a free plugin like Updraft to do your own daily backup, so that you always have a working copy of your website from only a few hours before, in case it's ever needed. But they do offer daily backups with their business WordPress and their WordPress Pro plans as well, so that's at least something. With their shared hosting plans, you'll see even with the most basic plan, they offer a lot of performance features and a lot of storage. This is really good, especially for compared to other hosting providers. Don't offer as much storage, or at least they offer a lot more storage, however at a higher price point. Their performance, their website performance on websites hosted by Hostinger perform really well in GTmetrix and things like that. So they offer really solid performance for the price point that they're offering it at. They with all of their plans, however, their service and support is really good. So all of their plans, you'll see, come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, and this is really good because this just means then you have a whole month to test out one of their plans. And you can test things like how well your site performs with their plan that you're currently on. Do you need more resources? Do you need less? You can test out their customer support. So if customer support is what you're looking for, then you have a whole month to submit tickets, call them, email, and use their customer support and engage things like how quickly do they respond, how good are their advice, how quickly do they solve your problems. You have a whole month to kind of figure that out with their customer support. And if there's anything that you're not happy with, if you realize Hostinger is not for you, then they will give you your money back within the first 30 days. So that's a really good pro to have. So there are web hosting companies out there that don't offer any money back guarantee, and there are some hosting providers that provide up to 60 days money back guarantee, which is a really generous amount as well. But Hostinger are really good to offer just the 30 days as well. Another thing that they offer that not a lot of shared hosting providers will offer, at least with their shared hosting, is the 99.9% uptime guarantee. So they really value how good an uptime website uptime is, and they will make sure that your site is at a 99.9% uptime. And to guarantee that, even with the most basic plan, is really good kind of value for money as well. So when it comes to picking a hosting provider and trying to pick up between what hosting provider to go with your budget, the first thing you need to think about is the type of hosting. Whether or not you're a small scale business and with a steady stream of traffic, would shared hosting be right for you? Or if you need your own server because of the high traffic of your website, then you need a dedicated server. And from there you can get an idea on how much you're going to be paying for in terms of your hosting. So if you know you're going to get the dedicated server, then you know it's going to be a slightly higher price point. The good thing about most hosting providers is that they offer lots of levels of hosting plans that include different features. And what you can do is start off small, start off with their basic plan, and if it is something that you realize you need to upgrade, or something that you need in the future to upgrade as well, you can always opt in to go for a slightly higher level of their hosting plan as well. So it's important to note that with the hosting plans that we've seen so far, not only do they offer hosting and good performance hosting, a lot of them offer things, extra things like the free domain and the automated backups. And these are things that, again, you might be needing anyway, so it usually works out more cost effective to pick a plan that includes that within their plan. But the best way to always find out, is to go on the website and look at the hosting plans, and you can always talk to live sales support as well if they have that on offer. But yeah, the first thing to think about is the type of hosting that you want, and then between that you can break it down between which hosting provider will provide everything that you need within the plan, or most of the things that you need within their plan, and does it fit within your budget.